What is up, everybody? Vital Syntax here, playing some Battlefield Bad Company 2. This is a game of Conquest on Oasis, and I'm using the M416 assault rifle. I'm not going to be talking about the gameplay in this video, though. I'm going to talk about the switch from Call of Duty to Battlefield. So this October/November, we've got two huge first-person shooter titles coming up. I know a lot of console players have been playing Call of Duty. That seems to be the most popular first-person shooter for Xbox and PS3. But I've also seen a lot of those same players anticipating Battlefield 3 more than they are Modern Warfare 3. So if you're somebody out there that maybe hasn't played too much Battlefield, or maybe you've just played a couple hours in Bad Company 2 on the consoles, or if you're even a PC player and you've played both franchises, basically I wanted to do a video and give you guys some pointers and tips for making the switch between those two franchises if you're switching from Call of Duty as your main first-person shooter to Battlefield. Now, I'm not comparing the two games. It's more of, I'm not saying pluses and cons of either of the games. I'm just kind of telling you what the differences are and what to expect if you're not familiar with Battlefield. So the first thing is vehicles. So Battlefield, if you're playing Conquest or Rush, is a very vehicle-heavy game, especially the core Battlefield game. Bad Company 2 did have a lot of vehicles, but not nearly as many as Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 2 had. So expect lots of tanks, helicopters, jets. I mean, you've seen all these types of vehicles in the game, and you need to take advantage of them. I know a lot of Call of Duty players are probably going to start off with Team Deathmatch, and I actually think it's a good idea. And I think it's a great idea that they added it in as a game type. But you really need to branch out eventually and start playing Rush and specifically Conquest on the PC, because it's 64 players, and that's really the core Battlefield experience. But I actually would suggest, if you're a Call of Duty player switching over and you're testing out Battlefield 3 for the first time, I would actually suggest playing Team Deathmatch or Squad Deathmatch. I'm not sure exactly all the game modes they're going to have in the game, but I know those two are going to be in there because, number one, they're more similar to Call of Duty, and it's not going to be quite as steep of a learning curve. And number two, it's going to ease you into the game, so you won't get frustrated quite as easily if you just are getting obliterated, and it'll just be more familiar. So, but if you are going to play Conquest or Rush, which I hope that all of you do eventually, if you don't start off with that, one of the things that you're going to have to deal with is vehicles. And vehicles can be very annoying and frustrating if you're not using them yourself. So say for on one of the larger maps, you spawn at your base, and there's some tanks and Humvees and four-wheelers, whatever, that you can use to get to different objectives. If you don't take advantage of those vehicles, you're going to have to run a very long distance to get to the objective or get to anywhere that there's going to be action and gunfire. So make sure you take advantage of transport vehicles. Also make sure you take advantage of tanks and helicopters and jets. And I know at first it might feel strange. At least for me, it did. Like when I first started playing Bad Company 2, I only played Squad Deathmatch, and then I started playing Conquest towards the end of when I played on the PS3. And now that I'm on the PC, I mean, Conquest is the only game that I play. So for me, it was kind of a slow transition. And when I used to play on the consoles, there, in Squad Deathmatch for Bad Company 2, there was one vehicle. There was a tank, and it was always really annoying if somebody got in the tank, because I just felt like I couldn't. I had just changed my role if I wanted to battle them. I usually play with the assault rifles, so I only had a grenade launcher, so there's no way for me to actually take out the tank. And it was frustrating that I had to switch classes or whatever to either get C4 or tank mines or rocket launchers. But that's something you have to get used to in Battlefield. In Call of Duty, you make your classes, and you usually use a couple of your classes over and over and over. You might tweak them a little bit here and there, but in Battlefield, you need to be changing classes on the fly. You need to be switching up depending on the different scenarios you're in. I mean, if you're in a vehicle-heavy part of the map that's large, wide open, you probably want to be an engineer, especially if nobody else in your squad's playing as engineer. Or if you're playing in a tight, closed area that has lots of closed section, like in the Metro, Operation Metro, when they're actually in the Metro area. That probably is going to be a good, probably a good role is going to be to play as the medic or play as the assault. I mean, there's no vehicles down there. You don't really need to be playing as an engineer all too much. And sniper rifles aren't super helpful because it's not open terrain, so there's not very many long open ranges for you to snipe. So you always need to be adapting the way you're playing to fit, number one, your squad, and number two, fit the scenario. Alright, next thing is auto aim. Bad Company 2 on the consoles doesn't have auto aim, and it's a lot different than Black Ops. Black Ops has a lot of auto aim. I don't know if it's more than the previous Call of Duties, but if you switch between Bad Company 2 and Black Ops, there's a huge difference in auto aim. And if you don't know what auto aim is basically when you aim down your sight, or even when you're just hip firing, your crosshairs will help you aim at your enemy. So if the enemy moves to the left a little bit, your crosshairs will automatically track them. So it makes it easier to hit targets with joysticks, because joysticks aren't quite as accurate as a mouse and keyboard. So auto aim is very, very heavy in Call of Duty, and that's something you're going to have to get used to. At first you're probably going to get you're probably not going to be very accurate with your weapon. You're probably going to get killed a lot if you're playing against veteran Battlefield players. So you're going to have to get used to that lack of auto aim. Next thing is teamwork. Teamwork also kind of plays into playing your role, switching your role on the fly. But unlike Call of Duty, Battlefield's very team-oriented. Call of Duty, you're just basically run and gun, lone wolf. But Battlefield, it's all about teamwork. It's all about reviving your teammates, giving them ammo, spotting enemies for your teammates, repairing tanks, even if you're not going to be driving the tank, just repairing it for a buddy, because number one, you're going to get more experience that way. Number two, it's funner, and number three, it's gratifying and it feels rewarding. So team play is huge, and I think that Battlefield 3 is going to do a really good job of giving you good incentives to play as a team. So that's something you're going to have to get used to, is not just running around straying away from your squad and just going lone wolf. You really need to stick with your squad, and you need to play a support role for your teammates. Next thing is recoil. Modern Warfare 2 had absolutely no recoil. The ACR and a couple of other guns were just lasers, and then Black Ops, they did add some of that recoil onto those guns. And Modern Warfare 3, I think it's gonna go back to the Modern Warfare 2 formula, where there's very little recoil. And from what we've seen from the trailers, most of the guns are very, very accurate and don't have a lot of kick to them. But Battlefield, if you've ever played Bad Company 2 or any of the previous Battlefield games, have a lot of recoil. Even at medium ranges, you often have to tap or burst fire. So be careful. Don't just hold down the trigger. There's also a lot of other factors that come into recoil in Battlefield. In Call of Duty, it's basically, if you hold down the trigger for a certain amount of time, your recoil will increase. But in Battlefield, there's a lot of other things that come into play. If you're crouched, if you're standing, if you're prone, that's all going to affect how accurate and how much recoil your gun's going to have. On top of that, if you're standing still, you're going to be more accurate. If you're moving, strafing left and right, you're going to be way less accurate. So there's a lot of other factors that play into recoil and accuracy that you're going to have to pay attention to. And the most important thing is just know that at close range really is the only time you're going to be able to go fully automatic. Medium ranges, you're probably going to burst, and long ranges, you're probably going to tap fire. And this is obviously if you're using a fully automatic weapon. Next thing is pacing. So Call of Duty is very fast paced. I think a lot of people would agree on that. That's not to say that Battlefield isn't fast paced. There are some extremely high intensive fast paced moments in Battlefield, but they're usually spread out over larger time lapses. In Call of Duty, it's just constant action. You kill somebody, then another guy comes around the corner, you kill him, blah blah blah, you die, you respawn instantly. Battlefield's a little different. You might have some really high action sections where maybe you're capturing a flag, you get killed, you get revived, you take out a couple enemies, you repair a tank. It can be really, really intensive, especially with a large amount of people, especially on the PC with 64, but even on the consoles with 24 people, that's still a lot of people. That's more than Ground War in Call of Duty, which is 18 people. So pacing is something that you're also going to have to get used to. Don't expect it to be constant action, and don't just run around constantly. You want to play a lot more tactically in Battlefield than you do in Call of Duty. You want to not necessarily go slow, but take your time and check your flanks, check both ways before you cross the street, type of thing. You don't want to just run around constantly and expect to do well. So pacing is something that you're going to have to get used to if you're switching. The next thing is scale. I think we all know this is a huge feature, I guess, or a difference with Battlefield is the maps are ginormous. Especially on the PC, even on the console, there's still going to be ginormous, huge maps. Probably some of the biggest maps you've ever played on. This also kind of ties back into using vehicles to get around the map. It also kind of ties back into pacing. But in Call of Duty, actually in Modern Warfare 3, they said the maps are even going to be smaller than previous Call of Duty games. From what I saw at Call of Duty XP, a lot of people were claiming that these are some of the smallest maps that have ever been in a Call of Duty game. Now, some people like that. Some people like constant, like Nuketown 24/7, constant fuckfest, kill, die, instant respawning. Some people like that mentality, and that's those are the people that are playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 this fall. But Battlefield is just, it's ginormous. The fact that you can fly a jet and have a room to fly a jet around on a map, they have to be huge. And Caspian Border is one of the maps we've seen in some of the trailers, and it's ginormous. So that's another thing you're going to have to get used to. It's not a bad thing at all. I don't even know if it's a good thing. It's just a difference. It's something that you're going to have to get used to. All right, the next thing is basically only applies to console players, and that is 30 frames per second and 704p. So basically, Call of Duty runs at 60 frames per second. It's a constant 60 frames per second. Sometimes it'll drop a little bit, but on Xbox and PS3, it runs at 60 frames per second. And on top of that, it runs at about 600p, meaning that there's 600 vertical lines of pixels. And the biggest thing is the frames per second. Now, once again, this is something you're going to have to get used to. I personally don't mind 30 frames at all. I can't even notice a difference, and I think that's how most people are going to feel. You basically just need to spend time on a game that's 30 frames per second, like Battlefield or Bad Company, whatever, and your eyes will get used to it. You won't even notice that it's 30 frames per second after, I would say, about an hour or two of playing. And to be honest, almost all console games run at 30 frames per second. Call of Duty is one of the very few. Halo is another great example that only runs at 30. I shouldn't say only. It runs at 30. Only it makes it sound like it's a bad number, but 30 frames per second really isn't that bad on consoles. Now the 704p is the resolution. That's the base resolution for Battlefield 3 on consoles. That's going to be upscaled to 720p. And I don't believe you'll be able to do upscale to 1080p, but I know people claim that Call of Duty is 1080p game. No, that's not the case. It actually only runs at 600p, and they upscale it, meaning that they magnify the pixels by whatever ratio to meet that resolution. So technically, it's actually not 1080p. So if you ever hear somebody that makes that argument, it's totally false. So biggest thing here is just that you're going to have to let your eyes get used to the lower frame rate, and once you're used to it, you're not going to notice a difference at all. Another thing that kind of ties into this same subject is controller responsiveness and controller lag. A lot of people complained with Bad Company 2 that there was too much controller lag, that it wasn't responsive enough, and they claim that made it slower paced or whatever. And there's some other games out there that have a lot worse response time. For example, Killzone 2 was really bad. Killzone 3 was pretty bad as well, but it was a little better than Killzone 2. These are both PS3 exclusive titles. Bad Company 2 I actually thought was pretty good. Now, it wasn't as good as Call of Duty's, and basically when I talk about controller responsiveness or controller lag, it's the nanoseconds basically of you pressing a button on your controller and it actually showing up on your screen. But one of the things that they said that they're working on with Battlefield 3 is that they want to reduce that controller lag. So I think that for console players, you should have a smoother experience. Now, we'll have to obviously wait for the beta, for the full game to come out, but the developers are claiming that it's going to be a smoother controller experience. Next thing is health regeneration. Now, I think this is a huge thing, and I see a lot of newbie Battlefield players making mistakes that revolve around this area. So in Call of Duty, your health regenerates extremely fast. I mean, basically, you take damage, you can go behind cover, and 3 seconds later, you're fully regenerated health. But Battlefield, it's a lot different. I don't know the exact statistics. We'll probably have to wait for the beta or the full game to come out to get those exact timing and whatnot. But in Battlefield Bad Company 2, let's say you take damage, it takes a long time. I don't know the exact numbers, but it takes a long time, like 10 to 30, maybe like 15 seconds for your health to regenerate all the way up if you were at like 1% or something. And the reason for that is they want to encourage team play with the medics. So the medics are going to be able to drop health packs just like they did in previous Battlefield games. And if you stand anywhere near that health pack, your health is going to regenerate slowly. And it's not fast, it's slow. I mean, you don't expect it to regenerate in 2 seconds. And there's also there's a little sound effect that goes off when your health is fully regenerated. So I don't know exactly if it's going to be the same the sound effect as it was in Bad Company 2, but you'll be able to hear it. Just pay attention for that. So, if you take damage, don't just run back out and expect to win another gunfight, because if you have 20% health and the enemy has 100% health, even if you get the first couple bullets on the enemy, chances are you're going to lose that gunfight. So make sure that you have at least one medic in your squad. If not, then make sure that you're switching to the medic. And that kind of ties back into just making sure that you fit the role of your squad and your team. And then don't just run out in the open if your health's down. Make sure that you retreat. Maybe you fall back a tad bit. If you're not the medic yourself, then ask one of your teammates or your squad mates to drop a health pack. And there is a way, I don't know if it's going to be the same in Battlefield 3, but in Bad Company 2 on the console, so you would press back or select while aiming at a teammate, and it would call out, be like, hey, give me some ammo, or hey, give me a med kit, or whatever. And you can do that with your teammates and your squad mates if they don't know to give it to you, just by themselves. So that's another thing you're going to have to get used to. Next thing, and I guess this is going to be the last topic for switching from these two titles, is sniping and quickscoping. So recently, Demise99, who is a DICE developer working on Battlefield 3, tweeted that the sniper rifles in Battlefield 3 are going to be different than they were in Bad Company 2. And the difference is that there's not going to be any one-hit kill snipers unless it's a headshot. So in Bad Company 2, you had a lot of bolt-action sniper rifles like the M24, the GOL, the SV98, the M95, and they're all bolt-action snipers. And if you put the Magnum ammo, even if you didn't have Magnum ammo, you could usually get one-hit kills within like 100 meters from an enemy. And then if you put the Magnum ammo, which increased the damage for each bullet, you could get one-hit kills, 100 to 150 meters. And then beyond that, you had to get a headshot or you had to shoot them twice. So it's going to be a little bit different with Battlefield 3 in the sense that there's not ever going to be a one-hit kill unless it's a headshot. So even if you have a bolt-action sniper and you're 2 feet away, if you hit an enemy with that sniper, you're not going to get a one-hit kill. And this, I personally like this idea. They're basically trying to make sure that you're not using a sniper rifle for quick scoping or for close range combat, because that's not what they're meant for. They're meant for long range scouting, spotting enemies. So don't expect to quick scope. Don't expect to do well with a sniper rifle at close range. You need to switch to your secondary. You need to pull your knife. You need to maybe not use a sniper rifle in close quarter maps. So that's it. Thanks for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed, remember to leave a rating, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.